ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if you could please kindly turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Death has taken our beloved Elaine Moskowitz. Our friends and family grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them, for Elaine's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever, for her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. As we listen to the words of Shviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid, knowing that I have set the eternal God always before me.
Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini balemot. Lachin samach libi vayagel kevodi, af besari shkon lavetach. Ki lo tazov nafshi lishol, lo titen chasilcha lirot shachat, tudini orach chayim. Sovasimachot et panacha, nimot b'mincha netzach. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini balemot.
And we turn now to the timeless words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God maketh me to lie down in green pastures. God leadeth me beside the still waters. God restoreth my soul. God leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for God's name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one in Elaine who will not be forgotten. for all that was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away, and we pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach, blessed be the name of God, now and forever. And so at this time, I would like to invite members of Elaine's closest circle to come and share some words with all of us today, those who knew her best. So our speakers will come forward as follows. We'll hear first from Rini, then Lanny, followed by Ian, Rory, and Julie.
I just wanted to say, although it's a very sad day, there's so very many things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for so much of my family being able to be together. I'm grateful for my friends who have gathered here and also on the live stream. I'm grateful that my mom can now see clearly, hear well, and breathe freely. I'm grateful that she had so much love in her life, from her parents, Harry and Rose, her brother Louis, my dad Len, and of course now from Dave. I'm grateful that in the 6 years since I retired, I've been able to spend so very much time with her. I'm grateful that she instilled in me the values of kindness and compassion, acceptance and respect, and the confidence to be a strong person, lessons that I hope I have passed along to my children as well. However, I'm sad that tonight when I drive home, my mom won't be there to ask me to call when I get home, something I have done every time my entire life. I'll miss you, Mom.
Hello. I've never done this before, so just kind of bear with me. It's a little corny, but first of all, thank you everyone for coming today. My mom really appreciated it. I declared yesterday at our virtual meeting that with my family that my mom liked me best. But in reality, she liked everyone and was well liked in return. She was Elaine Altman, daughter of Rose and Harry Altman, and older sister of her brother Louis, who she loved dearly, who is here today as well. She lived with them for 21 years, and then became Elaine Moskowitz at age 21 when she married my father, Leonard, and lived happily for 57 years till he passed, and has now been the proud companion of Dave, for which we are eternally grateful for the past 10 years, and Dave, who we can't tell you how much sorrow we feel for you as well. She lived 88 years, which somehow just wasn't long enough, and certainly would have liked a few more years with her. And of course, she would have liked at least one more week to have seen the Eagles win the Super Bowl yesterday. I didn't know her early years, but I guess we first met in the days before urine pregnancy tests, when she found out she was pregnant with me when she euthanized the rabbit. My earliest memories were age 5, growing up in Whitpin Township, Pennsylvania, with my mom, dad, my sister Rini, when she, my sister Rini, and our dog Snoopy would attend our baseball games coached by my dad, and then we would all go out for a celebratory ice cream afterwards. I also recall, in retrospect, the extra effort she put into for the holidays, and now appreciate all the extra attempts she made to buy me the perfect gift. I wish I still had my James Bond attaché case and my Snurfer snowboard, but they're long gone. We grew up in a very happy household where my friends were always welcome, and for which she had an endless supply of coffee cake for everyone. She gladly invited my friends to join us on vacation until the night that Charlie and I fell asleep at the party and didn't make it home till 6 a.m. Oops. I went on to be the dutiful Jewish son who went to medical school, and to this day I'm not sure who was more excited, her or me. She was even given a MD diploma when I graduated, mother of a doctor. She displayed for some time. A few years later, she warmly welcomed my wife Barbara into our family and insisted to be called Mom. I think sometimes she would call when I was at work just to speak to her alone, sort of mother to daughter. A few years later, she elatedly became Mom when she welcomed our first son, Ian, the first of 4 grandchildren. Ian, later our son, Eric, and my Reenie's 2 children, Sarah and Rory. As it was with me, I had to restrain her from spoiling my children with gifts, though somehow she did sneak into our house the full Power Ranger figurine set and the Hess trucks. She and my father would often make the 3.5-hour drive to be part of our many events. She attended their sporting events and plays, and proudly attended their bar mitzvahs, high school graduations, college graduations, and PhD ceremony. She ultimately warmly welcomed my son's wife, Julie, into our family, who she insisted to be called Mom, and later her great-grandchild, Adam, and declared that she was now a very great-grandmother. My most recent fondest pictures of my mother are with her holding our grandson, Adam, in her lap. Sadly, the last 6 months were a long, sad farewell because I knew what was coming. It was hard to accept it. And this day that a few more years would have been nice. She would be dearly missed. Thank you.
I'm sure my mom had fun watching the Eagles game last night with Pop-Pop. My mom's passing is a profound loss to our family, as she was our family's matriarch. Throughout my life, family dinners were always at her house. I doubt that I'll ever have her candied sweet potatoes without thinking of her. She recognized the importance of bringing our family together regularly. Amazingly, she hosted Thanksgiving for 60 years. Our annual family reunion has always taken the form of a week at Ocean City. I'm the oldest of her 4 grandkids, and we all got to spend a lot of quality time with her and with Pop-Pop on those trips. She was very interested in our lives, asked a lot of questions, and wanted to know who we were. That trip was so special that when it became time for me and my wife Julie to get married, the 48th Street Beach was the obvious choice. In the time I spent with my mom, 2 things impressed me most. First was her leadership, as she was usually running the show and coordinating events. Second was her unconditional love of her family. While she wasn't sappy, in fact, I doubt she has any interest in watching us praise her today, there was no doubt that she fully loved us and was ready to help in any way. When Julie and I welcomed our son Adam almost 2 years ago, my mom was of course thrilled to take the role of a great-grandma. She loved making him smile. I also see a lot of her traits and the way that she interacted with me passed down to my parents as they embark on their grandparenting careers. A key addition to our family has been Dave. After Pop-Pop passed approximately 10 years ago, he's been a mainstay at our family functions. With his calmness to complement her energy, it is clear why they formed such a tight companionship. And it's also not surprising that she has so many close friends, many of which are here today or watching online. As our family copes with the loss of my mom, it will be important to honor her legacy of keeping us together. We will all miss you.
For more than 30 years of my life, my grandmother was at the center of every family gathering, every holiday, every celebration. Family to me looked like her house, sounded like her voice, tasted like her food, and felt like her unforgettable smile. At the root of Judaism and of what it means to be Jewish is tradition, ritual, and above all, family. The Tanakh tells a story of family, of a people, generation after generation, who live together and grow together and pass their experiences down, parent to child, changing but remaining. I have memories of being a young child in my grandmother's house, surrounded by relatives who seemed impossibly old to me, but who were younger than I am now. I saw my newly born cousins in my grandmother's house and watched them grow into adulthood. We sang songs on Passover, usually haphazardly. We ate brisket and chopped liver and matzo ball soup. When we met every summer in Ocean City, my grandmother was there, sitting in a beach chair whose colors are burned into my memory, wearing her distinctive sunglasses, always warm, always quick with a joke and quicker with a smile. The branches of our family tree stretch wide beyond where she began it, but we will always have her at our roots. I know and love the family I see here with me because we knitted together around her. I hear her wry humor in my uncle's jokes. I wrote that before I knew what you were. And I see her smile and my cousin's infectious grins, and I feel her wisdom and her love in the countless ways that my mother has raised me and loved me and cared for me, in the ways that she was raised and loved and cared for in turn. When I think of my Jewish faith, I will always think of her, because this to me will always be what Judaism is, the return to our roots over the succession of years, festivities that recur and renew every year, at once recent and eternal, flowing through our blood, timeless and undying. Love, to me, will forever feel like her warmth. Family will always taste a little bit like brisket.
Renee and I did not get the height change in the family. Okay. My aunt and my cousins have always been more to me than My aunt and my cousins have always been more like members of my immediate family versus extended family because that's how we see each other. I have spent every holiday and special occasion with the Altman and Moskowitz clan. We have vacationed together for over a decade. You might start to hear some themes from all of us. The last week in July, we could all be found on 48th Street Beach in Ocean City. I looked forward to that week down the shore more than I can ever explain. My children grew up with their cousins, digging holes, burying Eric in the sand, body surfing, or catching a ball in the waves. And even before my family began spending the week at the shore with them, my aunt always invited her brother and his family to spend that Sunday with them. We would spend the day at the beach, and then we'd take over the Chinese restaurant on 9th Street for dinner. That was until our family got too big and we couldn't fit in the restaurant anymore. These memories will last a lifetime. But it's not just the experiential memories, it's the personal memories. My aunt was always the most independent and strong-willed person I knew. She exuded confidence that I will always admire because for most of my life, I was so insecure and lacked that level of confidence. It amazed me to see a woman so sure of herself, and I admired her so much for it. She taught me to try new foods. I one time was at her Cherry Hill home, and she was making us lunch, and she asked if I liked tomatoes. I mean, seriously, what kid likes tomatoes? So of course I said no. So she made me retaste tomatoes. And if you knew my aunt, I had no choice in the matter. I retasted tomatoes. And guess what? She was right. I absolutely love tomatoes. Again, themes. Now we're going to go into cooking. For those of you who don't know, my aunt was the best cook ever. I mean, her holiday dinners were the type of meals that you would dream about. You couldn't wait till you got to have them again because they were that fantastic. But it wasn't just the big meals. It was every meal she made. She just had magic touch in the kitchen. One of my all-time favorite memories was when I was in college, and then she invited me over to help her cook before one Thanksgiving. She taught me how to make some of her mother's famous recipes, her special roasted potatoes, her candied yams. It was the absolute best experience because I got to see her in her element, and I learned so much about cooking from her. She often would share her favorite recipes and Altman family recipes like my grandmother's cherry kugel, which is the best kugel that you've ever had or didn't have. And she even gave me her recipe of how to turn a regular slice of salmon into Nova lox, which was amazing and a lot cheaper. Having my aunt share recipes with me meant that I knew she knew I could do them justice, and she thought I was a good cook too. But it was something that we could share in common, and that I can help bring those Altman recipes to the next generation. But what brings the biggest smile to my face is when I would see my dad and my aunt together. It's an extraordinary thing to see parents interact with their siblings. It's like being transported back in time, watching them share stories together of how they tormented each other. Now, there's a 5-year-old gap, and my aunt was married at 19 or 21, I can't remember. But so my dad was pretty young, but they still had their time to make mischief. My favorite story that they would often share was when my aunt would be lying in wait for my dad to come out of the bathroom, and she's got her towel all whipped up and ready to go. And as soon as my dad would come out of the bathroom, she'd whip him on the butt. She thought she was so clever and hilarious, that is, until my dad started chasing her, and then she would go screaming around the house. The only thing better than visualizing them as children doing this was looking at two of the adults that I respected most in my life and seeing them through each other's eyes. My dad would be telling this story, and he would be laughing so hard he could barely breathe, and his face would be beet red from crying and laughter, and my aunt would be dying laughing as well. And just seeing them through each other's eyes was such a gift. They love each other so much, and I will always cherish the two of them. I will remember when I told my dad what happened, the very first thing he said was how fond he was of his sister, and he adored her, and that she was the perfect sister for him. I love you so much, Annie Elaine, and I will proudly carry on and pass the Altman heritage of cooking on to the next generation, as you have done with me. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Renee and Lanny and Ian and Rory and Julie for sharing those words from those closest to Elaine. And at the risk of repeating some stories that have already been repeated, sure, but are so worth repeating, right? As we tell them again and again to the next generation and for generations to come, I offer these words to you with the hope that they offer comfort to you at this time. It's really an honor for me to share some words today about Elaine Moskowitz. As the most recent rabbi at her synagogue, Adath Emanuel, I have had the pleasure of getting to know Elaine as a regular in the pews at Friday night services, sitting on the cantorial side, about 6 rows back, in one of those first 3 seats from the center aisle. 7 rows? Thank you. About 6, so 7 rows. Thank you. Lucky number 7. You know, we already miss her in our sanctuary and in our synagogue. This week, Jews around the world will be celebrating the Jewish holiday of Tu B'Shvat. It's a celebration of the trees. I appreciate, Rory, some of your references to those roots and branches that went through my mind as you were speaking them. One of my favorite Tu B'Shvat stories comes from the Talmud. It's about a man by the name of Choni, the circle maker, who was walking along the road when he came upon a certain man who was planting a carob tree. And Choni asks the man, "How many years will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" And the man answers, like 70 years. And Choni then asks, "Do you expect that you'll live another 70 years so that you would be able to benefit from this tree?" The man replies that he found the world filled with carob trees. "Just as my ancestors planted for me, so too am I planting for my descendants." As Choni sat and ate, he grew tired and he went to sleep. And the legend goes on to tell us that a boulder encircled Choni and he disappears from sight, and then he sleeps for 70 years. And then when he wakes up, he sees a man gathering carobs from that very tree. And Choni asks, "Are you the man who planted that tree?" And the man replies, "I am his grandson." Well, this story teaches, of course, Choni, as it teaches us, that the old man who was planting didn't do so necessarily for his own benefits. He planted so that Lador Vador, through the generations, his descendants that come after him would benefit from those metaphorical seeds he planted, the trees that grew, and fruits that would be harvested and would nourish the people who ate them. And this story makes me think of Elaine. For she was a woman who embraced, among other things, Jewish traditions, celebrating holidays, taking family vacations, the values of family and kindness and helping others. Elaine was friendly, sweet, and caring. She lived her life by example. And these are just some of the traits that she passed down Lador Vador through the generations. For Elaine was a loving mother, mamam, sister, daughter, family member, and friend, and she will be so dearly missed. And while a eulogy could never capture all 88 years of Elaine's life, let us be comforted by recalling these memories of Elaine Altman Moskowitz. Elaine was born to parents Harry and Rose Altman, Zichronam Livracha. She was a devoted daughter and a dear older sister to her brother Louis. The two of you were very close. And Elaine grew up in Philadelphia, which one could detect right away in just listening to her Philly accent. Her parents instilled in her a love of Judaism and taught her by example, which is perhaps why she and Len hosted so many of those Rosh Hashanah, Passover celebrations over the years, as well as Thanksgiving. Elaine was an adoring wife to the late Leonard. They had met when she was still in high school, when they were bowling on adjacent lanes. Len, 3 years older, attended Elaine's high school graduation. And when she was 19 years old, they married. And it was a marriage that would last 57 years when Len passed away. In addition to those family vacations, Elaine and Len, after he retired, enjoyed traveling all over the place, and most memorable was their 50th anniversary cruise with the family. After high school, Elaine studied to become a lab technician, and we heard the story how it was back in the day, and the family has told the story and continues, that she did her own rabbit test to find out that she was pregnant with her first child. Later on, she worked for a physician, but she was home for her children when they were little. She was a devoted mother to Lanny and Renee. She was a room parent for your classes and there for you when you came home from school. You recall how your family's home was the one in which your friends all gathered. Your mother had a gift for welcoming people, and she would talk to all your friends. Renee, friends from your elementary school days have been commenting on how wonderful your mother was. You remember those 50 years of family vacations in Ocean City, New Jersey, renting the place for the week and preserving those traditions of this family haven, the places to stop for lunch, the destinations of which beach to spend the day, and of course, the building of the sandcastles. Though Elaine was not an artist per se, she loved that tradition of making those sandcastles with her children and then eventually with her grandchildren. She was dedicated to her children and supported you in your endeavors, whether it was coming to baseball games or plays, sometimes with Snoopy, as you mentioned, Lanny, or driving the long distances to see her grandchildren, just as she had watched her own children. She enjoyed being with you and delighted in your pastimes. She was always looking out for your interests and made sure that you had what you needed. Even, Lanny, when you were an adult, coming over for a visit, she wanted to be sure that you had your non-diet soda and the other foods that you liked. Lanny, you see yourself as strong like your mother, and you may have even inherited her spilkies. She liked to get things done and be on her way, which is something, Renee, you too can see sometimes in yourself. Her kindness and compassion to others are traits that she passed down to both of you. Elaine warmly welcomed into the family Barbara and George and more recently Stephen. Barbara, you remember how your mother-in-law would buy cards for your birthday and the like, and then she would cross out the words in-law because you were like another daughter to her. And Stephen, she so appreciated you. She especially liked those tours of the southern New Jersey wineries that you chauffeured her around and introduced her to. She was an adoring mom to Ian and his wife Julie, Eric, Rory, Sarah, and her wife Cass. You mentioned the other day how your mom gave the best hugs. From that small framed person, she hugged with every ounce of strength and made you feel grounded and supported. And when new members came into the family, Elaine was quick to add their names and charms to her necklace. You can see in each of you different ways that you are like your mom. And she was a proud and beaming great mom to Adam. Just having him on her lap lit up the room. His presence contributed to her vibrance, and the two of them together exuded almost a tangible energy. In the years after Leonard, Elaine showed great resilience. She learned how to send and receive email. She used a smartphone to send and receive texts while her eyesight was still good. She found a certain strength from within that she could excel in and achieve any number of challenges. And while she was independent and held her own, she was also so grateful to have found companionship with David Malamut. You two complemented and supported one another. And you two were the faithful regulars on Friday nights at Addith Emmanuel. Elaine was a dear and kind friend to many. When she moved to Holiday Village years ago from Cherry Hill, not only did she forge friendships with new people, she also cared for others. For those who were unable to drive, it was Elaine who did that when she could. She drove them on their errands and helped support them in a variety of ways. And she especially treasured that short trip she was able to take last April to Florida to visit her friend there. Thank you to Renee who helped get her there and back. And all the other things about Elaine. How she loved to wear bright colors, which reflected her bright personality. How she could be stubborn, like insisting she wouldn't stay overnight at Reenie's even when it was late to drive back home. How over the years she was involved with Edith Emanuel and their sisterhood. How she loved to read the paper, and when she developed macular degeneration, she so appreciated that machine that magnified the print to enable her to continue to read. How she loved to do the puzzles in the paper, like the crossword cryptogram and Sudoku, which she did in pen, something to admire. How she enjoyed theater and had a subscription to see shows in Philly. How she had the best and brightest smile. And all the other things about Elaine Altman Moskowitz that would take about another 88 years to tell. These past months have been tough for Elaine and her loved ones, as her health was up and down, and her eyes dimmed and her hearing was fading. Yet this is only a small slice of the many years which comprised her whole and fulfilling life. Like the man who planted trees for the benefit of the generations that followed him, Elaine Moskowitz planted, grew, developed, and sowed the seeds that blossomed into her family tree and will continue to bear fruit from her for generations to come. The matriarch of the family, she has left behind such a beautiful legacy. And although she is no longer with us in this world, something of Elaine can never die. She lives on in our memories and in the hearts of all who knew and loved her. O God of comfort, comfort us now and help us to keep alive the memories, traditions, and values so dear to us in Elaine Altman Moskowitz. And let us say, Amen. We pause now for a moment of silent meditation where each of us might recall a memory that we shared with Elaine. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. As we're able, we rise in body and spirit, listening to the words of El Maleh Rachamim.
El Maleh Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מסירים, לנשמות אסתר בת הרשל, שיהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסתרע בשדה כנפיו לעולמים, וישרור בגזור הקיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Elaine Moskowitz, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God, you are her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.